So, today we're going to look at how much does smoking increase your risk of death. We're going to look at the publication called Cigarette Smoking and Cause-Specific Adult Mortality in the United States. This screenshot is taken from the author's manuscript, which you can openly read on PubMed, but basically the same document was also published in Demography later. So what does the study say? It's based on 1990 to 2011 National Health Interview Survey-linked mortality files. They concluded that 481,887 excess deaths per year were caused from current and former smokers due to them smoking. They separated current smokers by smoking intensity and former smokers by time since cessation. The idea was that if a disease risk was higher in heavy compared to lighter smokers, the cause of death would be more attributable to smoking as opposed to being caused by some other confounding factor. So let's look at the smoking attributable causes of death. Only about 1/4 of deaths was found out to be due to lung cancer. I mean, that's the big one. Everyone knows about that one. But the risk for multiple cancers is increased. A ton of cancers. Lip cancer, oral cavity cancer, esophagus cancer, stomach cancer, colon cancer, rectal cancer, liver cancer, and so on, and so on, and so on. For multiple cardiovascular diseases is increased, like ischemic heart disease, other heart diseases, stroke, atherosclerosis, aortic aneurysm, and other arterial diseases. Obviously, the risk for a ton of respiratory diseases is also increased, like pneumonia, influenza, tuberculosis, COPD, and diabetes. The possibility is there is the possibility that there are even more diseases which are affected negatively by smoking, so the risk goes up due to smoking. But as of yet, the data is only suggestive and yet not sufficient to draw the conclusions that smoking is causative or a causative factor in these diseases. So let's look at a few relative risk ratios for all-cause and cause-specific mortality. So in adults over the age of 35, or 35 and up. The all-cause mortality for current smokers is 2.29 times higher for females which are currently smoking and 2.24 times higher for current male smokers. As you can see, the risk is lowered by a lot for former smokers regarding all-cause mortality in males as well as in females. There are a lot of diseases that are obviously established as being caused by smoking, and you can see that for some of them the effect they have on the mortality by the specific disease in current smokers is quite high. For example, in lip and oral cavity cancer, where the risk for currently smoking females is over 4 times higher, the mortality relative risk, and a little bit lower than 4 times higher for males. I'm not going to go through every single risk, but as you can see, this is just the beginning of the list, and almost every cancer, the risk to die from almost every cancer is higher in smokers, at least the ones listed here. I mean, it's crazy how many cancers are negatively and other diseases are negatively influenced by smoking, or the risk to die from these diseases goes up by smoking. So obviously laryngeal cancer goes up by a crazy amount in women, like 26 times the mortality is increased by smoking, and even over 6 times in former smokers. who are female. Interestingly, these effects are almost halved in men, so that's interesting what these sex-specific effects are in this very specific cancer type. So in lung cancer, you have an 18 times increased risk for current smokers, which goes down to an about 6 times increased risk in former smokers who are female. And for the males, the risk of lung cancer is 13 times, to die of lung cancer is 13 times higher in current smokers and about 4 times higher in former smokers. I'm not going to go through the risk increase in all of these diseases. It's notable that the disease for an aortic aneurysm is also increased by 8 times, by a factor of 8 times, approximately in males and females, and the risk for COPD also goes up by a lot. I mean, but yeah, the sum of all of this risk increases is crazy if you look at it up close. I mean, so the additional diseases associated with smoking that were newly identified, not by them, but by other groups, are listed here. And their risk also goes up, maybe not as much as the risk of lung cancer does, but all of these effects definitely add up. Key takeaways: there's a higher risk of death in smokers compared to non-smokers, and a general pattern emerged for the diseases attributable to smoking. The more you smoke, the higher the risk. The longer you stopped smoking, the lower the risk got over time you stopped. They showed that quite nicely with the data they presented. Not going into the details, you just have to believe me on these takeaways or look into the data in the paper itself. It's quite nicely written. So how much does smoking increase your risk of death? About 14 to 15% per year. Thank you for watching my video.